Gojo Satoru's dream is the opposite of Gateway because it's based out of love. He basically wants to hit reset on the crap that the world of sorcery is, with strong and clever comrades who can become sorcerer that can rival him. The strongest of the Jujutsu world isn't just the honored light-skinned king. He's always 2 steps ahead of the game just for that dream alone. So can we speculate that Gojo has predicted the new powerhouses? Well, let's look at the evidence. Here's where things get deliciously convoluted. Of the 4 special grade sorcerers, 2 are already out of the running. Geto, a memory. Yuki, not in the picture anymore as of recently. We are running out of special grade here. The old guards are falling and there's this vacuum left for new exceptional talent. If you've got the stuff, it's like an open addition to the next sorcerer superstar. So who is lined up for this one-in-a-generation opportunity? You might think obviously Yuji. Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Yuji is just a decoy, like a sleight of hand. He's not Sukuna's host anymore, and that's a big deal. And also, let's be honest, Yuji is nowhere near hitting that special grade mark. If he's your horse in the race, you're betting on the long shot. So everyone's hung up on Yuta and Hakari. But let's not forget the guy who's supposed to be the star. But as stated earlier, Yuta's supposed to be the star of the show. But right now, calling him a main character feels like calling a scooter a sports car when he's parked next to Lamborghinis like Yuta and Hakari. So here's the kicker. Could Yuji be the actual next ceiling breaker? Or get all has distracted? Yeah, maybe, but I'm not holding my breath. And here's why. First off, Yuji doesn't even have a curse technique. The guy's going old school with good old punches and kicks. Now, his physicality is not to deny, but we've moved past the day when the schoolyard bully was the biggest threat. At any time in point in the Jiu-Jitsu world, you need more than biceps to become a contender. You need some serious Jiu-Jitsu juju, and Yuji is lacking in that department. Although, you do want to grant him that, even without a curse technique, he's still running up with the likes of Yuta. Briefly though. Now you might say, hey, didn't they tease that Yuji might have a body swiping curse technique? Sure they did. But here's the thing. Swapping buddy isn't exactly an advantage in a universe where people are throwing around domain expansion like it's confetti. If you're fighting Yuta, you might find yourself in a buddy that Yuta has cursed into oblivion. And then what? Congrats, you have played yourself, sir. Let's stack him up against our aforementioned powerhouses, shall we? Yuta's copying techniques left, right, and center, leveling up like he's got cheat codes. Hakari is literally rewriting the rules of the game with his domain expansion. Yuji? Not in the same league. He's basically the guy who shows up in a gunfight with a knife and not even use the knife and say, I'll just keep punching you. In addition to not having a domain expansion, the VIP lounges of the Jiu-Jitsu world, everyone who's anyone has one. Yuji? Still waiting outside, hoping the bouncer would let him in. So the bottom line is, for Yuji to even be in the running for this new power ceiling, he'd have to pull some Rocky level upsets. Not only would he have to conjure up a curse technique and a domain expansion, but he'd also need to gain tactical intelligence to use them effectively. Of course, it's been stated before that he had an advanced mastery of curse energy, but until it becomes something significant like an actual curse technique or a domain expansion, he will be running behind. Now, am I saying it's impossible? No, it's not impossible. But if I were a betting man, my money would not be on Yuji. We've seen him at his most powerful, at his most clever, and it's impressive, but not groundbreaking. He is a powerhouse, but in this world of chaos that Kenjaku shaped into a landscape for gods and monsters, being a powerhouse doesn't just cut in anymore. Now let's talk about Yuta, who's honestly a freak of nature when it comes to curse energy. This guy is a volt of power, only second to Sukuna and even surpassing Gojo. It's not just the fact that Yuta has a ton of curse energy, it's how he uses it that makes him an absolute menace on the battlefield. His fighting ability we're about to discuss should answer if he's ready to become a new power ceiling. Well, first up, his unique ability to copy other curse techniques. Think of him as a rogue wizard who steals spells from other spells books and uses them better than the original casters. But this isn't a sloppy copy and paste job. When Yuta copies a technique, he elevates it. He uses Inumaki's curse speech, but basically put it on steroids. In the series, we've seen Inumaki commands low-level curses to halt, explode, using his limited vocabulary, right? Cool, but fairly basic. But remember Yuta against Geto. He used it once, and it was like he flipped the switch for mass destruction. Every low-level curses in the area got demolished. Now, let's not discount that Inumaki got a massive hit on Geto, but it was basically out for the count afterwards. Back to Yuta, it's not like curse speech is his only streak. He has a portfolio of curse techniques. He's got Rika, the skybending technique, and who knows what else up his sleeve. Each of these is not just an imitation of a full-blown upgrade to the original. The skybending technique is altering the fabric of the battlefield. So you're basically not fighting Yuta, you're fighting a one-man army with home field advantage. So what does this mean in larger context? Why is this proof that Yuta is setting the next power ceiling? Well, let's be honest, Gojo sets the benchmark for what it means to be overwhelmingly powerful in the Jiu-Jitsu world. He alone is the honored one. But Yuta just doesn't hit that benchmark, at least not yet. He really hasn't reached his full potential. A Yuta with more experience, better control over these copied techniques, and maybe even new ones added to his arsenal, he won't just be the future, he's the guy who's gonna be shaping the future. You'll be looking at a new paradigm in curse energy and techniques, and Yuta is the poster child for it. Now the next claim here is straightforward. Hakari fighting system is something entirely else. We are talking about a dude whose domain expansion isn't just some gloomy alternate reality, it's his entire curse technique. He's basically a gambler with jackpot abilities, and they make him effectively immortal for 4 minutes and 11 seconds, lasting longer than the average man out there. Take his fight with Kashimo for example. The scene's tension is palpable, but we're not talking about the awkward silence at family dinner. Kashimo lands what should be fatal blows, dismembering Hikari limb from limb, but they just keep growing back. So his technique isn't just about raw power. Hakari also has the IQ of a Grandmaster chess player in the body of an MMA fighter. When Kashimo throws out a lightning fast attack, Hakari doesn't dodge or block. Facing such a fast attack, he tactically ejects the cursed energy right out of his brain to neutralize the attack. You have to be extremely quick on your feet to think about something like that. In the span of receiving such a fast blow, he also got knocked out unconscious in the ocean, where most would call it quits. Even as unconscious, he had the foresight to apply a reverse curse technique to wake himself up. It's like the guy has an internal alarm clock coded with a never give up as its mantra. And that is exactly what Gojo was talking about when he mentioned having a comrade who can become sorcerer that can rival him. He also stepped up even further with the bounding vow he came up with on the spot to counter Kashimo's explosive attack. Hakari basically used his quick wits to conjure the jiu-jitsu equivalent of a get out of jail free card. That's not enough to underline his extraordinary combat intelligence. His cursed energy has texture. His sparring against Yuji mentioned that something was wrong and getting a punch from him was felt like sandpaper. So even a basic jab turns into an excruciating experience, and that would leave enemies hesitant to engage in close combat. So what does this all prove? It shows that Hakari isn't just someone with insane power level, but also someone who knows how to use that power intelligently. Gege designed him to make you rethink what it means to be powerful in this world. So did Gojo predict a new power ceiling? Remember, Gojo got an intellect that is as nearly infinite as his curse technique. He'd be the first to acknowledge that raw power isn't the end-all be-all, and you need that sharp intellect to complement it. He clearly mentioned that in this new era of sorcerer, so there is a massive tide coming in fast, courtesy of Yuta, and maybe Yuji might have to get nerfed by Gege.